this is kind of looking at the Roman Empire, and I live right here in Exeter, which was part of the Roman Empire. And in fact, this last couple of weeks, they're redoing some buildings downtown here, and they were able to find that part of the Legion, the Roman Legion. There's remnants of the Roman Legion, of Augustine's Legion, and also remnants of a 4th century Legion. And so there's coins with even Nero from 66 BC, or AD rather, where right around the same time as Pompeii is exploding in the Mediterranean. There's Roman soldiers based right where I'm living right here. So this is the outskirts of that empire. The Roman Empire's core of this whole thing, the center of it all, being right at Rome. That's both the head of culture, right? So the language and style and all the way to be Roman is based right there, right in Rome. But that spreads and creates this whole empire, which you could say the peripheral areas. And that's a big concept between core and periphery that we're going to look at through these next 2 lectures to put things into perspective. So Roman Empire together is one big entity, the core being Rome, and then the further away you get, you still might be part of the Roman Empire, but the influence of the core might be less, right? So if you're pretty close to Rome, even in Greece and all these areas, and especially around Italy, you're going to get a high concentration of Roman culture. Further away you get, even into Britain and Germanic tribes and all this area, they're going to have an influence, but not as strong, right? The closer you are to the core, the more influence you're going to have. The further away, you have other mixtures of cultures emerging. So you can kind of see that with all these areas. That's a big important thing when we talk about the important concepts of world systems of exchange theory. This is a historian, a theorist named Emanuel Wallerstein comes up with this. And the idea of a core think of Rome and the very center of Rome, and then the periphery, all the areas outside, start to create a world system in itself. So within this world system, within Roman Empire, you could kind of see Roman's world system here playing a huge role. Well, as Roman Empire starts to fade, one way to look at how Roman Empire collapsed is through this model. Okay? Are you with me? So, what you could do is Lumberjack lynch here. This is taken when I lived in Reading, and I couldn't find an axe to use here at the university that I'm working at and living at. So this is an old picture. But so the best way to kind of look at and think about the Roman Empire is the Roman Empire being this huge entity, this huge world system, and it's just like one big large log. Right? It's a sturdy log. The strongest part of this whole empire, just like the log, is right in the center. That is the life force of the whole thing. That's where everything in the tree when it was alive and through this log happens right through the center, the core. And the further away you get, it's still part of it, but not as strong as the core. Are you with me? So what happens to Rome is in the same way of like this log. It can happen. The fall of the Roman Empire or the decline of Rome can happen in 2 ways. One, and has been written about by a lot of people, is internal decay. So the idea, just like a log, getting termites and weakening from within, causing collapse that way, is one way that people have looked at Rome. So people have written about moral decay, have written about how letting so many outside factors and peoples come in to destroy the Roman culture, which created more internal decay. Talk about, again, different types of corruption. All those things have been talked about and argued for the collapse of Rome. The other one is an external threat, that dramatic forces coming in, just like the blunt axe coming in and splitting it in half. Excuse me, and splitting this whole entity of this whole world system of the Roman Empire with outside blunt force. And that has been argued by other historians and peoples to explain outside forces coming in and destroying what was there. Now, Either way is fine, and there's lots of ways, pros and cons of both. But still, what happens if both theories has it as not completely destroying? It didn't disintegrate. It didn't burn up this log. It didn't burn up the Roman Empire. What it did is it created a split, right? So whether it's internal decay or an outside force of a axe, what remained is the empire, but split in two. Are you with me? Picking up what I'm throwing down? So that is what happened with the Roman empires, and that's why I call it the heirs of Rome. So remember the old map of the whole Roman Empire, just like the log, it split in two. And it split into parts. And in fact, we're going to see that it split into another third next week. Excuse me. So you have Rome here, but you also have Constantinople. And that, so if you look in the reading, what you're looking at now is not a Roman Empire, but the split, the heirs, this just like the log splitting in two, and it starts to be referred to just historically, definitely not in its time would they have thought of this. They would have thought themselves all as Roman. But for our understanding, it is something different. And they would have, still called themselves Roman, but for our understanding, this becomes Western Europe, Western Christendom. And what comes out of there with the Germanic tribes coming about, the Visigoths, the Goths, the Ostrogoths, what happens in this area, also the Vikings in the far north, and the other people, here in England you get Anglo-Saxon culture starting to arise. So lots of things happening in Western Europe and Western Christendom. But Christianity starts to form new identities in this region. Now, really what happens is Rome, the center of Rome and the Roman Empire, changes and comes over to Constantinople. And you read about Constantine, and you read about the different theories of why he became a Christian. And so we'll look at that briefly. But really, it becomes a new log, if you will, another world system in itself of Constantinople, shifting its core to here. And it lasts up until 1453 when it's destroyed by Ottoman Turks and in 1453, and then changes its name to a whole new city as we know it today. The main city, Constantinople, changing in 1453 to what we know it as today as Istanbul, with the Turkish Empire holding on to it thereafter, up until World War I. Rome, Constantinople, these two shifts, these two heirs of